The shuttle slipped quietly out of hyperspace and drifted toward the massive ring that circled the gas giant. Lights from 1,000 windows glowed against the dark of space. This was the Galactic Military Academy, a place where officers from hundreds of worlds came to learn how to command ships, lead troops, and win wars. Lieutenant Commander Laura Bennett sat alone in the passenger cabin. She was 32 years old, with short brown hair and steady green eyes. Her dark blue uniform was clean and pressed. She carried one small duffel bag on her lap. No one else had come with her from Earth. Humans were still new to this part of the galaxy. Most species called them Deathworlders because their home planet was full of danger. Sharp animals, wild weather, and hard ground that never forgave mistakes. The shuttle docked with a soft thud. A long metal walkway extended to meet the door. Laura stood up, adjusted her cap, and walked out. The arrival hall was huge. The ceiling rose high like the inside of a cathedral. Aliens of every shape moved around her. Some had scales that changed color when they spoke. Others had extra arms or long tails that flicked with thought. A few floated in small gravity bubbles because their bodies could not handle normal weight. All of them stared at Laura. A tall Krellian stepped forward to meet her. His name was Captain Zorvath. He stood almost 3 meters high. His skin was covered in smooth blue-green scales that shone under the lights. 6 long tentacles grew from his shoulders instead of arms. 2 of them held a data tablet. His large black eyes looked down at her without blinking. "Welcome, Lieutenant Commander Bennett," he said. His voice came through a small translator box on his chest. It sounded flat and cold. "You are the first human to step inside these walls in many years." Laura gave a small nod. "Thank you, Captain. I'm honored to be here." Zorvath did not smile. Krellians rarely did. "This is not a place for observers. This academy trains the best minds in known space. Our methods are perfect. They have been tested for centuries. We value order, precision, and safety above all things." He turned and started walking. Laura followed. They passed groups of cadets who stopped talking and watched her go by. Some whispered. Others pointed with strange fingers or feelers. "Your species has a reputation," Zorvath continued. "Deathworlders. Your planet is violent. Your people are violent. You fight wars with no rules. And you survive things that would kill most of us. That makes you unpredictable, dangerous." Laura kept her face calm. She had heard these words before. "We survive because we have to, Captain. Earth doesn't give second chances." They reached the main hall. It was a wide-open space with a clear dome roof. Stars and the swirling colors of the gas giant filled the sky above them. Hundreds of cadets stood in neat lines, waiting for the morning address. When Zorvath and Laura entered, every head turned. Zorvath raised one tentacle for silence. The room grew quiet. "Cadets," he said, his voice echoing through the hall. "Today we have a guest, Lieutenant Commander Laura Bennett of Earth. She is here as part of a new diplomatic agreement. She will watch our training. She will not take part. She will not interfere." He turned to Laura. Now his eyes narrowed. "Let me be clear. Humans are classified as Deathworlders. Your instincts come from a world of constant threat. Our academy teaches control. We teach planning. We teach caution. We do not teach chaos. We do not teach reckless action. We do not train Deathworlders." The words hung in the air. Some cadets looked uncomfortable, others looked pleased. A few smiled as if they had won a small victory. Laura stood straight. She met Zorvath's gaze. Her voice was quiet but clear. Everyone in the hall could hear her. "Then who's teaching you now?" For a moment, no one moved. Zorvath's tentacles stiffened. The translator box made a small clicking sound as it processed the words. A low murmur started among the cadets. Zorvath recovered quickly. Bold words for someone who has never seen real command. Laura did not back down. "But I've seen enough to know that perfect plans fail when the enemy doesn't follow the rules. and the universe never follows the rules." Zorvath stared at her for a long second. Then he turned to the cadets. "Return to your duties. The day begins." The lines broke apart. Cadets moved toward their classrooms and simulators. Laura stayed where she was. Zorvath looked down at her again. "You will be given quarters and access to observation decks only. Do not touch any controls. Do not speak unless spoken to. If you break these rules, you will be sent back to your ship immediately." "Understood, Captain," Laura said. He started to walk away, then stopped. "One more thing. Curiosity is permitted. Arrogance is not." Laura gave a small smile. "I'll remember that." Zorvath left the hall without another word. Laura stood alone under the dome for a moment. The gas giant rolled slowly above her, bands of red and gold turning in silence. She picked up her duffel and followed a glowing line on the floor that led to the guest quarters. As she walked, she passed training rooms with glass walls. Inside, cadets practiced hand-to-hand combat, flew small drones in tight patterns, and studied maps of star systems. Everything looked clean and exact. Laura knew this place was built for species that had never faced real hunger, real cold, or real predators. Earth had taught her people something different. Survival was not a class. It was a habit carved into bone. She reached her small room. It had a narrow bed, a desk, and a window that looked out at the stars. She set her bag down and opened it. Inside were a few changes of clothes, a personal data pad, and one old photograph of her family back on Earth, her parents standing in front of their small house, smiling under a blue sky. Laura looked at the photo for a long time. Then she put it on the desk, where she could see it every day. She sat on the bed and looked out the window. Somewhere out there, in the endless dark, ships moved and wars waited. She had not come here to watch. She had come to show them what humans could do when the perfect plan broke. And it always broke. Laura leaned back against the wall. A quiet laugh escaped her lips. The Academy thought it was ready for anything. It was about to learn otherwise. The next morning, the Academy buzzed with quiet routine. Cadets moved through bright corridors in perfect lines. They wore crisp uniforms and carried data pads close to their chests. Laura Bennett walked among them like a shadow. No one spoke to her. Eyes followed her, but mouths stayed shut. She found her way to the main observation deck. It was a wide, curved room high above the simulation hall. Thick glass walls looked down on rows of command stations. Each station had screens, controls, and seats shaped for different alien bodies. Today, the senior class ran a fleet exercise. The scenario was simple: defend a supply convoy from pirate raiders in an asteroid field. Captain Zorvath stood at the center console. His tentacles moved fast over the controls as he gave final orders. He glanced up when Laura entered. His black eyes narrowed for a second. Then he looked away. "You may observe from the back row," he said through his translator. "Stay silent. I do not touch anything." Laura nodded and took a seat far from the others. She folded her hands in her lap and watched. The lights dimmed. The big main screen lit up with a star map. Blue dots showed the Academy fleet. 20 clean cruisers in a tight defensive box. Red dots appeared at the edges. 30 pirate ships, fast and ragged. The simulation started. Cadets at the stations leaned forward. They spoke in low voices, giving orders. "Maintain formation Delta 7. Long-range batteries, target lead elements. Shields at 80%. Everything moved like clockwork. The blue fleet held position. They fired neat volleys of energy beams. Pirates took hits and scattered a little, but came back in waves. The Academy ships lost 2 cruisers in the first 10 minutes. Shields dropped. Hulls cracked on the screen. The cadets adjusted calmly. They pulled back, reformed, fired again. Laura watched without moving. She saw the pattern right away. The aliens fought by the book. They kept distance. They avoided risks. They waited for the enemy to make mistakes. But the pirates in the simulation did not follow any book. They used the asteroids for cover. They split into small groups. They darted close, fired torpedoes, then ran. Each attack chipped away at the fleet. 15 minutes in, the convoy was down to half strength. 3 supply ships burned. The blue fleet looked smaller on the map. Cadets started to sweat. One young Tarian cadet with feathered arms whispered, "We need to advance. Push them out." Zorvath shook his head. "Negative. Doctrine forbids aggressive maneuvers in uncertain terrain. Hold position." Laura leaned forward just a little, and she could see the problem clear as day. The pirates were not winning by strength. They won by making the defenders predictable. Every time the fleet fired, the pirates knew exactly where to hide. Every time the fleet moved, the pirates knew where to strike next. After 20 minutes, the simulation showed critical damage. Only 4 Academy ships remained. The convoy was gone. The victory screen would flash red any second. Laura stood up slowly, heads turned. Zorvath noticed her movement. "Sit down, Lieutenant Commander," he said sharply. "I have a suggestion," Laura said. Her voice was calm. "If I may." Zorvath's tentacles tightened. "You are here to observe." "And I observed," she answered. "Your formation is too rigid. The pirates use the rocks. You don't. Let me try something." A low laugh came from a few cadets. A yuan tall insect-like cadet clicked his mandibles. "A Deathworlder thinks she can fix our tactics?" Zorvath stared at Laura for a long moment. Then he made a small gesture with one tentacle. "Very well. Show us your chaos. Take the secondary console. But when you fail, you will leave this deck and never return to any exercise." Laura walked to the small side station. It was meant for backups. The screen was dark. She sat down and woke it up with quick taps. The controls felt strange under her fingers. Too smooth, too perfect. But she found what she needed. "Reset the simulation from minute 15, she said. "Same conditions." The instructor at the main board hesitated. Zorvath nodded once. The screen flickered. Time rolled back. The fleet appeared again, damaged but whole. Laura took a breath. "Break formation. Scatter into pairs. I'll use the asteroid shadows for cover. Make decoy signals, fake engine flares to draw fire. Then hit their flanks hard. Use the debris from destroyed ships as shields. Ram if you have to." The cadets stared. One spoke up. "That violates Section 4 of the Tactical Manual. Environmental hazards are—" "Exactly," Laura cut in. "Your manual says avoid hazards. The pirates live in them. So should you." Zorvath crossed 2 tentacles. "Proceed." The cadets looked unsure, but they followed her orders. The fleet split. Blue dots spread out like spilled water. They vanished behind big rocks. Pirate sensors lit up with confusion. Too many signals, too many false targets. The first strike came fast. A pair of Academy cruisers swung out from an asteroid's dark side. They fired everything at close range. 2 pirate ships exploded in bright flashes. The others turned to chase, but the humans were already gone, slipping behind another rock. Cadets gasped. Screens showed hits, shields held because they used chunks of floating metal as extra armor. Laura kept giving quiet commands. "Now, the left group, feint toward the convoy wreck, then pull back. Draw them into the dense field." The pirates followed. They charged after the bait. Then the rest of the scattered fleet closed in from 3 sides. Short, brutal fights broke out in the tight spaces between asteroids. Energy beams lit the dark. Ships twisted and turned. No neat lines, no safe distance. In 8 minutes, the red dots started to vanish, one by one. The pirates tried to run, but the Academy ships were faster now, unpredictable, aggressive. The last pirate cruiser tried a suicide run. An Academy ship met it head-on. They both vanished in a fireball, but the convoy survived. The screen flashed green. Victory. Silence filled the deck. Cadets stared at their screens, then at Laura. Some looked shocked, others looked excited. One young female cadet with glowing skin whispered, "She did it." Zorvath stood very still. His scales had dulled a little. He walked over to Laura's console. He looked down at the replay data. "Beginner's luck," he said. The scenario parameters were too loose. The pirates behaved illogically. Laura met his eyes. "Or maybe your pirates finally acted like real threats. The universe doesn't care about your manual." Zorvath did not answer right away. He turned to the class. "Exercise complete. Debrief in 1 hour. Dismissed." The cadets filed out slowly. Many glanced back at Laura. She stayed seated until the room emptied. The Zorvath remained. He spoke without looking at her. "This changes nothing. One win does not rewrite centuries of doctrine." Laura stood up. She was shorter than him, but she did not feel small. "Maybe not, but it proves something can change." He finally turned his head. "You will not be allowed near a console again." Laura gave a small nod. "Understood, Captain." She walked to the door. Before she left, she stopped. "But if you ever want to see what happens when the rules break for real, you know where to find me?" The door slid shut behind her. Outside in the corridor, a few cadets waited. They did not speak, but one, a short, sturdy male from a heavy-gravity world, gave her a quick salute. Laura returned it. Word would spread fast. The Deathworlder had beaten the system, and the Academy would never be quite the same. Yet the news of Laura's win in the fleet simulation spread like fire through dry grass. By evening, cadets talked about it in the mess hall, in the corridors, even in the quiet study rooms. They spoke in low voices. Some laughed it off as a glitch. Others looked thoughtful. A few repeated her words, "The universe doesn't follow the rules." Captain Zorvath felt the change. He walked the halls and saw eyes follow him differently. Cadets no longer stood quite as straight when he passed. The whispers followed him too. He decided to end the talk before it grew. One sharp lesson would remind everyone of proper order. The next day, he called a full assembly on the training deck. This was no simulator. This was the real thing. Zero-gravity combat arena. A huge, spherical chamber 50 meters across. Floating platforms, metal beams, and then cargo crates drifted slowly in the empty space. Bright lights made sharp shadows everywhere. Gravity was turned off. Everyone moved with thruster packs or magnetic boots. Zorvath stood on the central platform. His tentacles gripped the rail. Laura stood beside him, arms crossed. She had been summoned without warning. "Today," Zorvath announced to the gathered cadets, "we run a live boarding drill. Objective, capture the central flag and hold it for 5 minutes. 3 elite squads against 1 opponent." He turned to Laura. "You will face squads Alpha, Beta, and Gamma. Each squad has 8 members. They are the best in their year, trained in perfect coordination. You will fight alone." A murmur rose from the cadets. Alone? Against 24 trained fighters? Laura looked at the arena. She saw the floating obstacles, good cover if used right. She saw the flagpole in the center, glowing red. She saw the 3 squads already in position on different sides. They wore full training armor. Training pistols shot low-power stun rounds. Painful, but not deadly. Zorvath continued. "This is to demonstrate proper tactics, envelopment, synchronization, no tricks, no savagery. Begin when the siren sounds." He looked down at Laura. "You may refuse. Return to observer status. No shame." Laura met his eyes. "I'll fight." Zorvath's scales rippled. He gestured to the arena entrance. "Enter." Laura pushed off the platform. She floated into the chamber, no armor. Just her uniform, magnetic boots clipped to her belt, and a standard training pistol. She carried no extra gear. She drifted to a cluster of crates near the edge and hooked her boots to one. She waited. The siren blared, sharp and loud. The 3 squads moved at once. They had practiced this 100 times. Alpha Squad advanced straight from the north, Beta from the east, Gamma from the west. They formed a perfect triangle closing on the center. Each member covered the others. They used short bursts from thrusters to stay in formation. No one rushed. No one broke line. Laura watched them come. She did not move yet. Alpha Squad reached the first line of obstacles. They split neatly. 4 went high over a beam, 4 low under a crate. Clean. Textbook. Laura kicked off her crate. She floated low and fast toward a dark shadow under a large platform. She vanished from sight. The squads noticed. "Target lost visual," a voice crackled over comms. "Maintain advance," the squad leaders answered. "She cannot hide forever." They pushed closer to the center. Gamma Squad fired a few test shots into empty space. Bright blue stun bolts flashed. Nothing hit. Laura reappeared suddenly, high above Alpha Squad. She had climbed a chain of drifting panels using handholds she found on the way. She hung upside down from a beam like a spider. Before they could react, she fired. 3 quick shots. 3 cadets from Alpha jerked as stun rounds hit their chests. They floated limp out of the fight. "Contact!" Alpha leader shouted. They turned and returned fire. Bolts crisscrossed the space where Laura had been. She was already gone, dropped low, and spun behind a thick support strut. Beta Squad moved to support. They tried to flank her position, but Laura had left a surprise. She had loosened a small cargo net earlier when no one watched. As Beta passed under it, she yanked the release cord from her hiding spot. The net fell open. Heavy mesh wrapped 2 cadets. They tangled and spun helplessly. "Improvised trap!" one yelled. Zorvath watched from the observation window. His tentacles gripped tighter. This was not allowed. But the rules said nothing about using the environment. The arena was full of loose parts for realistic training. Gamma Squad tried a different approach. They used telepathic links. Their species could share simple thoughts. They spread out in a search pattern. Close the net. Force her to the center. Laura let them think they were winning. She drifted into view near the flag. She looked exposed. Gamma rushed forward in perfect sync. 6 cadets converged. At the last second, Laura fired upward, not at them, but at a loose panel above. The panel spun free and tumbled down like a falling door. It crashed into the lead cadets. 2 more went spinning away, stunned by the impact. The remaining Gamma members hesitated. That was all she needed. Laura pushed off hard. She flew straight through the gap they left. She grabbed a drifting rifle from a fallen cadet, better range than her pistol. She fired as she passed. 4 more down. Now only a handful remained across all squads. They regrouped near the flag. Fear showed in their movements. No more perfect lines. They clustered tight, backs together. Laura circled them slowly. She stayed in shadows. Every time one moved, she fired from a new angle. One by one they dropped. A leg hit here, a shoulder there. And stun rounds left them floating like broken dolls. The timer hit 0. The flag still glowed untouched. Laura floated to it. She hooked one boot to the pole and stood calm. Her breathing was steady. A small bruise bloomed on her cheek from a near miss. That was all. The arena lights brightened. Med teams entered to collect the cadets. They groaned as they woke. Some looked angry. Others looked stunned. Zorvath floated down to the center. His face showed no emotion, but his scales had turned dull gray. "You use tricks," he said. "Savage tricks, loose panels, nets, environmental weapons. This is not warfare. This is barbarism." Laura unhooked her boot. She faced him. "Your squads used perfect tactics. They lost. I used what was here. I won. Call it what you want." The cadets who could stand watched in silence. One young female from Beta Squad spoke up. Her voice shook. "She beat us fair. We had numbers. We had training. She had nothing. And she still won." Zorvath turned to the class. "This exercise is over. Return to quarters. Debrief tomorrow." He looked back at Laura. "You will report to my office in 1 hour." Laura nodded. "Yes, sir." As the cadets left, a few paused near her. One male cadet with scaled arms gave a small bow. Another whispered, "Thank you." They floated away. Laura stayed a moment longer. She looked at the flag, then at the scattered gear and floating bodies being collected. She had not come to humiliate anyone. She came to show them something simple. When the plan fails, the fighter who adapts lives. Zorvath waited at the exit. His tentacles hung loose. "You have made your point," he said quietly. "But this academy stands on order, not chaos." Laura floated closer. "Order is good until the day it isn't. Then what?" He did not answer. He turned and left. Laura followed slowly. The arena emptied behind her. The flag still glowed in the center, alone. Word would spread even faster now. The Deathworlder had not just won a game. She had broken their confidence, and something new was starting to grow in its place. The academy felt different after the zero-gravity fight. Cadets walked slower in the halls. They talked less about perfect scores and more about what Laura had done. Some practiced alone in empty rooms, trying to copy her moves. Others argued in groups about whether her way was wrong or just new. Captain Zorvath saw it all. He knew one more demonstration would not be enough, and he needed something big to put everything back in order. He announced a full Academy war game. It would last 3 days. Every class would take part. The scenario covered a whole star system, 3 planets, 2 asteroid belts, 1 gas giant with moons, and orbital stations around each world. The goal was simple: control the system, hold the key bases, protect your supply lines, destroy or force the enemy to surrender. Teams formed fast. Most were led by senior cadets from respected species. They had strong ships, good weapons, and years of training together. Zorvath made one special team. He called it the Human Auxiliary. It had only 6 members, Laura in command, plus 5 young cadets who asked to join. They were curious. They wanted to see if the Deathworlder could win again. Their ships were old training cruisers, slow, lightly armed, and few in number. The other teams laughed when they heard. The war game started at dawn academy time. Lights dimmed in the main command center. Huge screens showed the star map, blue and green dots for academy forces, red for the enemy AI, simulated invaders who played hard and smart. Teams took their stations. Laura sat at a small corner console with her 5 cadets. They looked nervous but ready. Zorvath stood at the center. "Begin." The first day was chaos for most teams. They followed standard plans. Big fleets met head-on. Long-range shots filled the screens. Ships traded fire in neat lines. The AI enemy used tricks, fake signals, hidden mines, fast raiders. Many Academy teams lost ground quick. Supply lines broke. Bases fell. By evening, half the map showed red. Laura did not fight like that. She kept her small fleet far from the main battles. She hid in the outer asteroid belt. Her ships moved slow and quiet. No big signals, no attacks yet. Her cadets asked why. "Wait," she said. "Watch first. Learn their moves." They watched. The other teams pushed forward too fast. They left their backs open. They ignored weak spots. Laura pointed them out. "See that supply convoy? Too close to the moon shadow. Easy to hit. See that orbital station? Its shields drop when it fires. Hit it then." On the second day, she struck. Not at the enemy. At the Academy teams, her cruisers slipped out of the belt like ghosts. They hit a long supply train heading to the main fleet. Small torpedoes, not big ones. Just enough to damage engines. The train slowed. Laura's team boarded one ship fast. They took food and fuel. Then they vanished again. A word spread on comms. "The auxiliary is raiding our own lines." Zorvath frowned at his screen. "They break doctrine. Ignore them. Focus on the enemy." But the damage hurt. Teams ran low on supplies. They had to pull back to protect what they had. That gave the AI more room. It pushed harder. More bases fell. Laura did not stop. She used tricks no one expected. She sent fake distress calls from empty space. Academy ships rushed to help and found mines waiting. She dropped sensor buoys that looked like debris. When ships passed, the buoys jammed their scanners. Confusion grew. Her team grew bolder. They hit a repair yard on the second planet. They blew the main dock with a timed charge. Then they left messages on open channels. Surrender your fuel depot or lose more. Some cadets on other teams started to listen. A few small ships even switched sides quietly, tired of losing. By the third day, the map looked bad for the Academy. The AI held 2 planets and most stations. The remaining Academy fleets clustered around the gas giant. They built a tight defense wall. No one advanced. They waited, safe, but stuck. Laura saw her chance. She gathered her team. We end this today. No more small hits. We make them choose. She split her force. 3 ships went loud. Big engine flares, open comms, fake battle chatter. They charged straight at the defense wall. The Academy fleets turned to face them. Guns charged. But the other 3 ships, Laura's cruiser included, slipped silent through the upper atmosphere of the gas giant. They used the storms for cover. Lightning flashes hid their signals. They rose behind the orbital stations. Close. Too close. Laura gave the order. Now! Her ships fired everything. Not at the ships, at the stations. Power relays exploded. Shields dropped across the line. The Academy fleet panicked. Some turned to protect the stations. Others held position. The wall cracked. Laura's loud group used the moment. They darted through gaps. They boarded flagships, hand-to-hand in corridors, stun rounds and quick takedowns. Captains surrendered one by one. The AI saw weakness. It attacked hard. But the Academy was already breaking. Teams raised white flags on screens. Surrender signals flashed. In less than 2 hours, the map turned. The auxiliary held the center. Surrounding forces gave up. The victory screen lit green for Laura's team. Silence filled the command center. Cadets stared at the screens. Some cheered quietly. Others sat with heads down. Instructors looked shocked. Zorvath stood frozen. His tentacles hung limp. The perfect war game, his war game, had fallen apart. Not to the enemy AI, to 1 human and 5 cadets who followed her lead. He walked to the small corner station. Laura stood up. Her uniform was dirty from the boarding action sim, a cut on her forehead from a close stun bolt. She looked tired but calm. Zorvath spoke low. This was not a fair test. Your tactics were outside all accepted parameters. Laura wiped blood from her brow. The enemy doesn't care about parameters, Captain. Neither should we. He looked at the map again. Red dots gone. Blue scattered. Green in control. You turned allies against each other, he said. You used our own systems against us. I used what was there, she answered. That's all survival is. The cadets started to leave their stations. Many walked toward Laura. They did not salute Zorvath first. They looked at her. One young cadet spoke. We learned more today than in 3 years. Zorvath's scales shifted color, dark to light, then dark again. He turned to the room. War game complete, he announced. His voice sounded flat. All teams stand down. Debrief in the main hall at 1800 hours. He looked at Laura one last time. You will attend. Front row. She nodded. Yes, sir. As the center emptied, Zorvath stayed behind. He stared at the blank screens. For the first time in many years, doubt showed in his eyes. Laura walked out last. Her 5 cadets followed close. They talked excited. Plans for new drills, ideas they never thought of before. In the corridor, a crowd waited. Odd cadets from every year. They did not cheer loud. They just watched her pass. Some nodded. Some smiled small. One handed her a clean cloth for the cut. She took it. Thanks. The academy had started as a place of rules and order. Now it felt like something else. A place where questions were growing and answers were coming from the least expected place. The main hall was packed. Every cadet, instructor, and staff member stood in neat rows under the big clear dome. The gas giant turned slowly above them, casting red and gold light across the faces below. No one spoke much. The air felt heavy. Captain Zorvath stood on the raised central dais. His scales looked duller than usual. He held no data tablet today. His tentacles rested still at his sides. Laura Bennett walked in last. She wore a fresh uniform, and the small cut on her forehead had a thin bandage. She took her place in the front row as ordered. Her 5 cadets from the auxiliary team stood behind her like quiet guards. Zorvath looked out over the crowd. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he spoke. His translator box made his voice clear and even. This academy has stood for centuries. We have trained officers from every corner of known space. Our methods are built on logic, on precision, on control. We teach what works in a galaxy that values stability. We have never needed improvisation. He paused. His black eyes moved to Laura. 3 days ago, in our largest war game, one team changed everything. A small group led by a human. They did not follow our plans. They broke formation. They attacked allies. They used tricks we call unfair. And they won. A low sound moved through the hall. Not quite a gasp, not quite a whisper, just awareness. Zorvath continued. I called this assembly to restore order, to remind you all of our principles. But as I reviewed the data, as I watched the replays, I saw something else. He turned fully toward Laura. Lieutenant Commander Bennett, step forward. Laura walked up the short steps to the dais. She stood straight. She did not look proud. She did not look afraid. She just looked ready. Zorvath faced her. His height made her seem small, but no one felt that way anymore. You came here as an observer, he said. You were told you had no place among us. I said these words myself. We do not train Deathworlders. He stopped. The hall grew completely quiet. Even the soft hum of the ventilation seemed to fade. Laura looked up at him. Her voice was calm and clear. Then who's teaching you now? The words landed like stones in still water. Ripples spread. Cadets shifted. Some smiled small. Others nodded slowly. A few lowered their heads as if hearing something true for the first time. Zorvath did not flinch. He held her gaze for a long count. Then, slowly, he lowered his head. Not a full bow, not weakness, but respect. Among his people, it meant more than words ever could. The hall stayed silent. Zorvath spoke again. This time his voice came softer. You have shown us a truth we forgot. The galaxy is not always predictable. Enemies do not always play by rules. Plans fail. When they do, survival belongs to those who can change, who can use what is around them, who can think beyond the manual. He turned to the cadets. But this academy will change. Starting today, we will add new courses, adaptive tactics, environmental warfare, psychological operations, improvised combat. Instructors from Deathworld species will be invited, not as guests, as teachers. Murmurs rose now. Excited ones, hopeful ones. Zorvath looked back at Laura. You will stay, not as an observer, as a guest instructor. You will teach what you know, and we will learn. Laura gave a small nod. I accept, Captain. Thank you. He stepped back. The floor is yours. Laura looked out at the sea of faces, young aliens from every world. Some she had fought, some she had beaten, some she had saved from their own perfect plans. She took a breath. I didn't come here to prove humans are better. I came because Earth taught me one thing above all. Nothing stays the same. Storms hit. Beasts attack, winters kill. You either adapt or you die. No manual can prepare you for everything, but you can prepare your mind to handle anything. She pointed to the dome above. Look up. That gas giant has been turning for millions of years. It doesn't care about our rules or our pride. The stars don't either. If we want to survive out there, we stop pretending the universe will be kind. We learn to be ready for when it's not." She smiled just a little. "And when the perfect plan breaks, and it will, don't freeze. Don't blame the enemy for cheating. Look around. Use the rocks. Use the shadows. Use your fear. Turn it into something sharp." She stepped back. "That's all I have to say." The hall exploded in sound. Not wild cheers, but strong applause. Cadets clapped with hands, tentacles, wings, feelers, and the noise rolled like thunder under the dome. Zorvath raised one tentacle for quiet. It took a moment, but the hall settled. "Classes resume tomorrow," he said. "New schedules will be sent tonight. Dismissed." The crowd broke apart slowly. Many cadets walked past Laura. Some stopped to speak. A tall insectoid cadet said, "I want to learn your flanking moves." A small floating one added, "Teach us about fear. We don't have it the same way." Others just nodded or gave quick salutes. Laura stayed on the dais until most had left. Zorvath remained too. He spoke low, just for her. "I was wrong about you, about your kind." Laura shook her head. "You were right about order. It's good. Until it isn't. We need both." He made a small sound, almost a laugh. "Perhaps. We will see." He turned to leave. Then he stopped. "One more thing. In my office tomorrow, we will discuss the first new course, together." Laura smiled. "I'll be there." Zorvath walked away. His steps were slow, thoughtful. Laura looked up at the gas giant one last time. It rolled on, endless and uncaring. She thought of Earth, blue skies, green fields, cities full of people who had learned to fight for every day. She thought of her family photo on her desk, smiles under sunlight. She walked down the steps. The hall was almost empty now. Only a few cadets lingered near the doors. One of them, a young female from the auxiliary team, waited. "Ma'am," she said, "what happens next?" Laura stopped. She looked at the cadet, then at the stars beyond the dome. "We keep going," she answered. "We train harder. We get smarter. And when the real test comes, not in a simulator but out there, we'll be ready." "Was all of us?" The cadet smiled. "Yes, ma'am." Laura walked out into the corridor. Lights glowed soft along the walls. Somewhere ahead, new schedules waited, new lessons, new fights. The galaxy had always been big and dangerous. Now it knew one more thing. Deathworlders did not need training. They brought the training, and the Academy would never forget the lesson.